The crisp autumn breeze swept through Boston's Beacon Hill, rustling the maple leaves that lined the historic streets. Charlotte Weber stood at her bedroom window, watching the early morning joggers pass by her family's brownstone mansion, their breath visible in the cold October air. At 26, she felt the crushing weight of her family's expectations pressing down on her shoulders like a heavy winter coat she couldn't shed. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Isabella, her younger sister, bubbling with excitement about her upcoming engagement to Gabriel Richardson. The name alone made Charlotte's heart clench painfully in her chest. She glanced at the message but couldn't bring herself to respond, not when her secret threatened to tear their family apart. "Charlotte, darling, the caterers need your input for Isabella's engagement party." Her mother's voice carried up the stairs, perfectly modulated as always. Adrienne Weber never raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her quiet disappointment could cut deeper than any shout. "Coming, Mother," Charlotte called back, smoothing down her navy silk blouse and checking her reflection. The dark circles under. Her eyes were barely concealed by expensive concealer, evidence of another sleepless night spent wrestling with her conscience. As she descended the grand staircase, memories of the past summer flooded her mind. The secret meetings with Gabriel, the stolen moments at their family's vacation home in the Hamptons, the whispered promises and passionate embraces. It had all seemed like a beautiful dream until reality came crashing down with Isabella's announcement. The kitchen was a flurry of activity when Charlotte entered. Her mother stood at the marble island, surrounded by sample menus and flower arrangements, while their longtime housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, efficiently organized the chaos. "There you are," Adrienne said, barely glancing up from the papers before her. "The Richardson family has very specific expectations for this engagement party, and we simply must exceed them. After all, this marriage, will secure both our families' futures." Charlotte's stomach churned at her mother's slip. That's all this was to their families. A business arrangement disguised as a love match. The Webers' old money combined with the Richardsons' tech empire would create an unstoppable force in Boston's high society. It was the perfect match, except for one devastating detail. Gabriel was in love with the wrong sister. "Mother, about the engagement," Charlotte began, her voice trembling slightly. But before she could continue, the kitchen door swung open and Isabella burst in, radiating joy and excitement. "Charlie, you won't believe what Gabriel just sent me," Isabella exclaimed, using the childhood nickname that now felt like a knife to Charlotte's heart. Her sister thrust her phone forward, displaying a photo of an elaborate flower arrangement. "He's so thoughtful, isn't he? I can't believe I get to marry him in 6 months." Charlotte forced a smile, though she felt like she might be sick. Just yesterday, Gabriel had held her in his arms, promising to find a way out of this arrangement. "That's wonderful, Bella," she managed to say, the lie tasting bitter on her tongue. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of wedding preparations and forced smiles. Charlotte went through the motions, offering opinions on color schemes and menu selections while her mind raced with the knowledge that would destroy everything. She was carrying Gabriel's child. That afternoon, her phone buzzed with a message from Gabriel. "Meet me at our spot. We need to talk." Their spot was a secluded corner of the public garden where the weeping willows provided cover from prying eyes. Charlotte made an excuse about a headache and slipped out of the house. Gabriel was already there when she arrived, pacing nervously beneath the willow branches. At 32, he cut an impressive figure in his tailored suit, his dark hair slightly disheveled from running his hands through it, a nervous habit she'd come to love. "Charlotte," he breathed her name like a prayer when he saw her. "I can't do this anymore. We have to tell them the truth." She wrapped her arms around herself, fighting back tears. "I have to tell you something first." The words stuck in her throat, but she forced them out. "I'm pregnant." Gabriel froze, his blue eyes widening with shock. For a moment, the only sound was the distant chatter of tourists and the rustle of leaves above them. Then he crossed the space between them in 2 long strides, gathering her in his arms. "This changes everything," he whispered against her hair. "I'll call off the engagement today. We'll face whatever comes together." But Charlotte pulled away, shaking her head. You don't understand. This isn't just about us anymore. The merger between our companies depends on this marriage. Hundreds of jobs are at stake. My father's health is already fragile. This could kill him. And what about our child? Gabriel's voice was fierce with emotion. What about our happiness? Sometimes happiness has to be sacrificed for duty, Charlotte said, the words feeling like ashes in her mouth. But even as she spoke them, she knew they were a lie. The truth was, she was terrified. Terrified of disappointing her family. Terrified of hurting Isabella. Terrified of the scandal that would inevitably follow. I don't accept that, Gabriel insisted, taking her hands in his. We're not characters in some 19th century novel bound by outdated social conventions. We're real people, with real feelings, and this is a real child we're talking about. A group of tourists passed nearby, their laughter carrying on the breeze, and Charlotte stepped back, creating distance between them. I need time to think, she said finally. Please, just give me time. As she walked away, leaving Gabriel standing alone beneath the willow tree, Charlotte felt the weight of her decisions pressing down on her. The path ahead seemed impossible. Every choice led to someone getting hurt. But as her hand drifted to her still flat stomach, she knew she couldn't hide from the truth forever. Sooner or later it would come out, and when it did, it would change everything. Isabella's engagement party loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon, just 3 days away. Charlotte sat in Dr. Madison's waiting room, her fingers drumming nervously against her designer handbag. The sterile walls of the upscale obstetrics clinic seemed to close in around her as she waited for her first prenatal appointment. Ms. Weber? The nurse's voice startled her from her thoughts. The doctor will see you now. Charlotte followed, the nurse down the hallway, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Each step felt like another movement toward making this situation real, undeniable. The nurse took her vitals, making small talk that Charlotte barely registered, before leaving her alone in the examination room. Her phone buzzed, a message from Gabriel. Thinking of you? Call me after your appointment? She turned the phone face down without responding. Last night's dinner with the Richardsons still haunted her, watching Gabriel play his part, seated beside Isabella, while their parents discussed wedding venues and honeymoon destinations. Dr. Madison entered the room, her warm smile putting Charlotte slightly at ease. Good morning, Charlotte. I understand this is your first pregnancy. Yes, Charlotte whispered, then cleared her throat. Yes, it is. About 8 weeks, I think. The examination proceeded with gentle efficiency. When the sound of a rapid heartbeat filled the room, Charlotte's eyes welled with tears. That's your baby, Dr. Madison said softly. Strong and healthy. Charlotte stared at the grainy image on the screen, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach. This was real. This was happening. There was a life growing inside her and Gabriel's child. I'm prescribing prenatal vitamins, Dr. Madison said, printing out the sonogram images. And I'd like to see you again in 4 weeks. Do you have any questions? 1,000 questions swirled in Charlotte's mind, but none that her doctor could answer. How do you tell your sister you're carrying her fiancé's child? How do you face your parents' disappointment? How do you choose between family duty and the life growing inside you? Leaving the clinic, Charlotte walked aimlessly through the busy streets of Boston's financial district. The October wind had picked up, carrying the scent of approaching rain. She found herself outside the Richardson Technologies building, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Isabella. Emergency, need your help with engagement party dress fitting. Meet at Bergdorf's in 30. Charlotte's thumb hovered over the screen. Each interaction with her sister felt like another betrayal, another lie piling onto the mountain of deception she'd created. But avoiding Isabella would only raise suspicions. She typed back a quick "on my way" and hailed a taxi. Bergdorf Goodman was buzzing with its usual afternoon crowd of Boston's elite. Isabella was already in the private fitting area, surrounded by a sea of designer dresses in varying shades of white and cream. "Charlie," Isabella waved enthusiastically. "Thank God you're here. I'm having a complete meltdown. None of these feels right, and the party is in 3 days." Charlotte forced a smile, settling into a plush velvet chair. "Let's see what you've got." For the next hour, she watched her sister try on dress after dress, each one more beautiful than the last. Isabella twirled and posed, her happiness radiating through the room while Charlotte felt the weight of her secret pressing harder against her chest. "What about this one?" Isabella emerged in a stunning ivory silk dress that floated around her like a cloud. "Gabriel loves when I wear this color." The casual mention of his name made Charlotte's stomach lurch. "It's perfect," she managed to say, but her voice must have betrayed something because Isabella's smile faltered. "Charlie, are you okay? You've seemed off lately." Isabella sat beside her, taking her hand. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" The sincerity in her sister's voice nearly broke Charlotte. For a moment she considered confessing everything. The summer affair, the pregnancy, the tortured nights of indecision. But looking at Isabella's concerned face, she couldn't bear to shatter her sister's world. "I'm fine," Charlotte lied, squeezing Isabella's hand. "Just stressed about work." "You work too hard," Isabella said, her worry transforming into excitement. "Oh, speaking of work, did you hear about Gabriel's latest project? He's developing this amazing new technology that could revolutionize renewable energy. He's so brilliant, isn't he?" Each word was like a knife to Charlotte's heart. Yes, Gabriel was brilliant. Brilliant and passionate and caring. She knew firsthand how his eyes lit up when he talked about his work, how he ran his hands through his hair when he was deep in thought, how gentle those hands could be. "Charlotte, are you sure you're okay? You look pale." "Just feeling a bit dizzy," Charlotte said, which wasn't entirely a lie. "I should probably get some air." "Let me come with you." "No!" Charlotte said too quickly, then softened her tone. "No, stay and finish your fitting. The dress is perfect, Bella. You're going to look beautiful at the party." She practically fled the store, gulping in the cool autumn air once she reached the street. Rain had started to fall, but Charlotte welcomed it, letting the drops mingle. With the tears she could no longer hold back. Her phone buzzed again. Gabriel. This time she answered. "I miss you," he said without preamble. "We need to talk about this. Really talk." "I just left Isabella's dress fitting," Charlotte said, her voice breaking. "She's so happy, Gabriel, so innocent in all of this. How can we—" "Meet me," he interrupted. "Tonight, the usual place. Please, Charlotte. We can't keep avoiding this." She knew he was right. The engagement party was in 3 days. After that, things would only get more complicated. The prenatal vitamins in her purse seemed to burn against her side, a tangible reminder of the choice she needed to make. "Okay," she whispered. "Tonight." As she ended the call, thunder rumbled overhead, and the rain began to fall harder. Charlotte stood there, letting it soak through her clothes, feeling as though nature itself was reflecting the storm raging inside her heart. In 3 days, everything would change. One way or another, the truth would have to come out. But as she placed a protective hand over her stomach, she wondered if any of them were truly ready for what that truth would bring. Rain pounded against the windows of the Four Seasons Hotel's luxury suite as Charlotte paced the room, waiting for Gabriel. The Boston skyline was barely visible through the downpour, city lights blurred into watery halos. She'd chosen this location for their meeting, neutral ground, away from prying eyes, yet public enough to maintain appearances if anyone saw them. The knock at the door made her jump. Gabriel entered, water dripping from his coat, his face etched with concern. "I came as soon as I could get away from the office," he said, shrugging off his wet jacket. "The board meeting ran late, and your father—" "I went to the doctor today," Charlotte interrupted, unable to hold back the news any longer. She pulled the sonogram from her purse with trembling hands. "Our baby is healthy. Strong heartbeat." Gabriel crossed the room in 3 long strides, taking the image with reverence. His fingers traced the grainy outline, and Charlotte saw tears forming in his eyes. "This is real," he whispered. "This is our child." "Gabriel, we need to make a decision." Charlotte's voice cracked. "The engagement party is in 2 days. After that, everything becomes more complicated." He looked up from the sonogram, his blue eyes intense. "I've been thinking about this constantly. I have a plan, but you need to trust me." "A plan?" Charlotte sank into one of the suite's plush chairs, suddenly exhausted. "What kind of plan could possibly fix this mess we've created?" "I've been talking to my lawyers," Gabriel said, kneeling beside her chair. "The merger doesn't actually require a marriage. That was our parents' idea. Their way of ensuring both families maintained control. But I've found another way to structure the deal." Hope flickered in Charlotte's chest, but she tamped it down. "Even if that's true, what about Isabella? What about our family's reputations?" "I know it will be difficult," Gabriel admitted, taking her hands in his. "But living a lie would be worse. Isabella deserves someone who truly loves her, not someone who's in love with her sister. And our child deserves to be born into truth, not secrecy." A flash of lightning illuminated the room, followed by a low rumble of thunder. Charlotte stood, moving to the window. "My mother called earlier. She wants me to give a speech at the engagement party, a toast to my sister and her perfect match." She pressed her forehead against the cool glass. "How am I supposed to stand there and celebrate this farce?" "Then don't." Gabriel's voice was firm. "Let me tell them tomorrow. Before the party. I'll take full responsibility." "No." Charlotte turned to face him. "We're both responsible. We both chose this. And if we're going to destroy everything, we should at least have the courage to do it together." The determination in her voice surprised even her. Gabriel crossed the room, pulling her into his arms. "I love you," he murmured against her hair. "I love you and our baby. Whatever comes next, remember that." A knock at the door made them spring apart. Charlotte's heart nearly stopped until she heard the voice. "Room service." Gabriel answered the door while Charlotte retreated to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. When she emerged, a room service cart with tea and light refreshments had been set up. "You should eat something," Gabriel said softly. "For the baby." The simple gesture of caring brought fresh tears to Charlotte's eyes. She accepted a cup of chamomile tea, wrapping her cold hands around the warm porcelain. "Tell me more about this alternative to the merger." For the next hour, they discussed possibilities and plans. Gabriel explained the complex financial arrangements. He'd been working on ways to protect both companies while avoiding the need for a marriage-based merger. Charlotte listened, asking questions, her business school background helping her understand the intricacies. "The board might actually prefer this structure," Gabriel concluded. "It gives them more direct control, less dynastic uncertainty. The only ones who might object are our parents." "And Isabella," Charlotte added quietly. "We can't forget what this will do to her." Gabriel's phone buzzed, a message from Isabella. His face fell as he read it. "She's asking about wedding venues. Wants to know if I prefer the Boston Public Library or the Harbor Hotel for the ceremony." Charlotte felt sick. "You should go, she'll wonder where you are." "I hate this," Gabriel said, but he knew she was right. He gathered his coat, still damp from earlier. At the door, he paused. "Tomorrow morning, we'll tell them together. I'll come to your house at 9. Charlotte nodded, unable to speak. After he left, she curled up in one of the chairs, hands protectively cradling her stomach. Outside, the storm continued to rage, matching the tumult in her heart. Her phone lit up with a message from her mother. "Don't forget. Final engagement. Party planning meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30. Don't be late." Another message followed, this one from Isabella. "Can't sleep. Too excited. Can you believe in just 2 days I'll be officially engaged to the most amazing man in the world? Love you, sis." Charlotte turned off her phone, unable to bear any more. She spent the night in the hotel room, watching the storm gradually clear over Boston Harbor. As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, she made a decision. She couldn't wait for Gabriel. She needed to tell Isabella first, alone. She owed her sister that much. Checking out of the hotel, Charlotte drove home through the quiet morning streets. The storm had left everything looking clean and fresh, though fallen leaves littered the sidewalks of Beacon Hill. She found Isabella in the kitchen, already dressed for the day, checking table arrangements for the party. "Charlie, you're just in time." Isabella beamed. "Help me decide between these two centerpieces." "Bella, we need to talk." Charlotte's voice was steady despite her racing heart. "There's something I have to tell you, and it can't wait." Isabella's smile faded as she took in her sister's serious expression. "What's wrong? You're scaring me." Charlotte took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "It's about Gabriel. And me. And... Good morning, girls." Their mother's voice rang out as she entered the kitchen, followed by Mrs. Richardson and two event planners. "Perfect timing, we have so much to discuss before Saturday's party." Charlotte felt the moment slip away as the kitchen filled with people. Isabella gave her a questioning look, but Charlotte could only shake her head. "Later," she mouthed, though her heart was screaming that later might be too late. As the meeting began, Charlotte checked her phone. A message from Gabriel. "On my way. Together, remember?" She looked at her sister, laughing with their mother over some wedding detail, and felt her resolve crumbling. In less than an hour, she would help destroy that happiness. The weight of what was to come pressed down on her until she could barely breathe. The doorbell rang and Charlotte's heart stopped. Through the window, she could see Gabriel's car in the driveway. The moment of truth had arrived, ready or not. The sound of the doorbell echoed through the Weber mansion like a death knell. Charlotte watched as Mrs. Rodriguez moved to answer, her comfortable shoes squeaking slightly against the polished floor. Time seemed to slow down, each second stretching into eternity. "Mr. Richardson, we weren't expecting you this morning." Mrs. Rodriguez's voice carried from the foyer. "The ladies are in the kitchen with the event planners." Charlotte's mother looked up from the seating arrangements spread across the kitchen island, her perfectly manicured eyebrows rising in surprise. "Gabriel, what brings you here so early?" Isabella's face lit up at the mention of her fiancé's name. She quickly smoothed her hair and straightened her cashmere sweater, the picture of Boston society perfection. "Darling, I thought you had meetings all morning." Gabriel appeared in the kitchen doorway, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something more hesitant. His eyes found Charlotte's immediately, and in that brief glance an entire conversation passed between them. She gave him an almost imperceptible nod. "Mrs. Weber, Mrs. Richardson," Gabriel addressed their mothers formally. "I apologize for interrupting, but there's something important we need to discuss. Something that can't wait." Charlotte's mother must have sensed something in his tone, because she dismissed the event planners with a graceful wave. "Perhaps we should move to the study," she suggested, her social training kicking in even as concern flickered across her face. "No," Charlotte said, her voice stronger than she expected. "Here is fine. Everyone needs to hear this." Isabella moved to Gabriel's side, reaching for his hand, but he stepped away. The hurt and confusion on her sister's face made Charlotte's heart constrict painfully. "What's going on?" Mrs. Richardson demanded, her Boston Brahmin accent becoming more pronounced with anxiety. "Gabriel, you're acting very strangely." Gabriel straightened his shoulders, looking every inch the successful businessman he was, despite the emotion in his voice. "Mother, Mrs. Weber, what I'm about to say will come as a shock, but I ask that you listen completely before responding." Charlotte moved to stand beside him, close but not touching. The small movement caused all eyes to turn to her, and she saw the moment her mother began to understand, saw it in the way Adrienne Weber's face drained of color. "No," her mother whispered, but Charlotte forced herself to continue. "Gabriel and I have been seeing each other," she said, the words falling like stones into the silence. "It started last summer in the Hamptons, before the engagement was announced." Isabella made a small, wounded sound like a bird hitting a window. "What are you saying?" I'm saying that Gabriel and I fell in love, Charlotte continued, her voice shaking but determined. And now, I'm pregnant. The crystal vase of peonies on the kitchen island crashed to the floor as Isabella stumbled backward, sending water and flowers spreading across the imported tile. Nobody moved to clean it up. This is absolutely unacceptable. Mrs. Richardson broke the silence first, her voice ice cold. Gabriel, whatever foolish infatuation you think you have with Charlotte must end immediately. You are engaged to Isabella. The merger doesn't require a marriage, Gabriel interrupted. I've found another way to structure the deal. One that protects both companies without forcing anyone into a loveless marriage. Loveless? Isabella's voice was barely a whisper. You told me you loved me. I tried to, Gabriel said softly. I wanted to, for our family's sake. But it wouldn't be fair to any of us to continue this deception. Charlotte's mother had not moved or spoken since the revelation. Now she turned to her eldest daughter, her face a mask of disappointment. How could you do this to your sister, to your family? Have we taught you nothing about duty and responsibility? Mother, Charlotte started, but Isabella cut her off. How long? She demanded. How long have you been sleeping with my fiancé? The crude word sounded wrong coming from Isabella's refined mouth, making the question even more painful. Since July, Charlotte admitted, the weekend of the Richardsons' summer party. When you helped me pick out my dress for that party, Isabella's voice rose hysterically. When you told me the blue one looked perfect, you had already been with him? Bella, please, don't call me that. Isabella screamed. You don't get to call me that anymore. My own sister, my own flesh and blood. Mrs. Richardson pulled out her phone. I'm calling our lawyers. This ridiculous situation ends now. The situation, Charlotte said, one hand moving protectively to her stomach, is that I'm carrying your grandchild. The words hung in the air like smoke. Mrs. Richardson's hand trembled as she lowered her phone. What did you say? Charlotte's mother asked, her voice dangerously quiet. I'm 8 weeks pregnant, Charlotte repeated. I have the sonogram if you want to see it. Isabella sank into a kitchen chair, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand. All those times you helped me plan, all those conversations about the wedding. You were carrying his child? The guilt and shame threatened to overwhelm Charlotte, but Gabriel stepped forward. The responsibility is mine as well. I should have been honest from the beginning about my feelings for Charlotte. Feelings? Mrs. Richardson laughed bitterly. You're throwing away everything, the merger, your reputation, your future, for feelings. For love, Gabriel corrected, and for our child. More footsteps in the hallway announced the arrival of Charlotte's father, Lawrence Weber, his face concerned as he took in the scene before him. What's all this commotion? I could hear voices from my study. Your eldest daughter, Mrs. Richardson, said with venom, has been having an affair with my son. She's pregnant. Lawrence Weber's face went from confused to thunderous in an instant. Charlotte Elizabeth Weber, is this true? Charlotte lifted her chin, forcing herself to meet her father's eyes. Yes, father. And before you say anything, Gabriel and I have already discussed this. We want to be together. The engagement party is tomorrow, her mother protested. 300 guests. The announcement's already been sent to the Globe. Cancel it, Gabriel said firmly. I'll pay any costs, handle any embarrassment, but I won't continue with this charade. Isabella stood suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. You don't have to cancel anything, she said, her voice eerily calm. Because I'm leaving. I'm going to London to stay with Aunt Margaret. I can't be here for this. Isabella, wait. Charlotte reached for her sister, but Isabella jerked away as if her touch burned. Don't, Isabella said, her voice breaking. Just don't. I trusted you. Both of you. And now, she turned and fled the kitchen, her footsteps echoing on the stairs. Mrs. Richardson followed her son's ex-fiancé, pausing only to deliver a parting shot. You've destroyed everything, Charlotte. I hope you're satisfied. The kitchen fell into heavy silence, broken only by the sound of water dripping from the overturned vase. Charlotte's father leaned heavily against the counter, looking suddenly old. The board meeting is in an hour, he said to no one in particular. How am I supposed to face the Richardson directors now? I have a proposal, Gabriel began, but Lawrence Weber held up a hand. Not now, he said wearily. I need time to process this betrayal. He left the kitchen without another word. Charlotte's mother followed him, pausing in the doorway. Clean up this mess, she said, gesturing to the scattered flowers. It's the least you can do. Then, they were alone, Charlotte and Gabriel standing in a kitchen strewn with broken crystal and ruined flowers, the morning sun streaming through the windows as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed, and there was no going back. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of chaos. News of Isabella's departure spread through Boston's elite social circles like wildfire, despite both families' attempts to contain it. Charlotte sat in her childhood bedroom, watching darkness fall over Beacon Hill while her phone buzzed incessantly with messages from family friends and distant relatives, all hoping to confirm the rumors. Your mother's canceling the engagement party, Mrs. Rodriguez said softly, bringing a tray of untouched dinner to Charlotte's room. The housekeeper, who had known Charlotte since childhood, looked at her with a mixture of concern and disappointment. The catering company is demanding their deposit. I'll pay it, Charlotte said, her voice hoarse from crying. I'll pay for everything. Mrs. Rodriguez set the tray down and hesitated. Your sister's flight landed in London an hour ago. Your mother thought you should know. Charlotte nodded, unable to speak. She'd tried calling Isabella countless times, but each call went straight to voicemail. Her text messages remained unread, their blue bubbles a testament to her sister's silence. A soft knock at the door made both women turn. Gabriel stood in the doorway, looking exhausted but determined. Mrs. Rodriguez quietly excused herself, leaving them alone. The board meeting just ended, he said, loosening his tie as he entered the room. Your father presented my alternative merger proposal. Charlotte sat up straighter. And? They're considering it. It's actually a better deal financially, which helps. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. But my mother's resigned from the board in protest. I'm sorry, Charlotte whispered. I never meant to tear your family apart. Gabriel crossed the room and knelt before her chair. Hey, look at me. We're in this together, remember? My mother will come around eventually. She did the same thing when my brother married outside our social circle, and now she adores his wife. This is different, Charlotte said. We betrayed Isabella. We betrayed everyone's trust. We made mistakes, Gabriel acknowledged. But loving each other, creating this life together, that's not a mistake. His hand gently touched her stomach. Have you eaten anything today? Charlotte gestured to the untouched tray. I can't keep anything down. Morning sickness, I guess. Or guilt. You need to take care of yourself, Gabriel insisted. Both of you. He picked up a piece of toast from the tray. Small bites, please. As Charlotte forced herself to eat, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her father's assistant. Emergency board meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. All Weber family members required to attend. They're going to try to force you out, aren't they? Charlotte asked, showing Gabriel the message. Probably, he admitted. But I've prepared for that. The alternative merger proposal doesn't require either of us to maintain our positions. The companies can still benefit without us at the helm. You'd give up your position as CEO? The company you built? Gabriel's eyes were steady. For you? And our child? In a heartbeat. There are other opportunities, other companies, but there's only one you. A noise from the hallway made them turn. Charlotte's mother stood in the doorway, her usual perfect posture slightly slumped. Your father would like to speak with both of you in his study. They followed Adrian through the quiet house. Family photos lined the hallway. Holidays, graduations, summer vacations. Charlotte's heart clenched when she saw one of her and Isabella as children. their arms around each other, matching gap-toothed smiles beaming at the camera. Lawrence Weber sat behind his massive mahogany desk, looking older than Charlotte had ever seen him. A half-empty glass of scotch sat before him. "Sit," he commanded. When they were settled, he continued, "The situation has become untenable. The press is already sniffing around, and it's only a matter of time before this becomes public knowledge." "Father, Charlotte began, but he held up a hand. "Let me finish. I've spent the afternoon talking to our PR team and major shareholders. The consensus is clear. We need to get ahead of this story before it spins completely out of control." He pushed a folder across the desk. Inside were draft press releases, each presenting a different version of events. Charlotte's stomach turned as she read phrases like mutual decision to end engagement and amicable separation. "You want us to lie?" she asked incredulously. "I want to salvage what's left of both companies' reputations," her father corrected, "and possibly save your sister some public humiliation." "With all due respect, sir," Gabriel interjected, "wouldn't it be better to simply tell the truth? Present it as a personal matter between consenting adults that has no bearing on the company's merger plans." Lawrence's laugh was bitter. "Consenting adults? You were engaged to one sister while sleeping with the other. The press will have a field day with this, and our shareholders will panic." "Then let them," Charlotte said suddenly, surprising herself with her vehemence. "I'm tired of living my life for shareholder value. I'm tired of pretending to be perfect for the sake of the family name." "You should have thought of that before you seduced your sister's fiancé," her mother said from the doorway. "That's not fair," Gabriel protested. "Charlotte didn't seduce me. We fell in love. Yes, the timing was terrible, and yes, we should have been honest sooner. But what's done is done." Lawrence Weber took another sip of scotch. "Indeed. And now we all have to live with the consequences." He pulled out another document. "Which brings me to this." "What is it?" Charlotte asked, though she already suspected. "Your resignation letter from Weber Industries, effective immediately." Her father's voice was flat. "You'll retain your shares but will no longer serve on the board or in any executive capacity." Charlotte felt as if she'd been slapped. She'd worked her way up through the company, starting in the mailroom during summer breaks, earning her MBA, proving herself in every position. And now, "If Charlotte goes, I go too," Gabriel said firmly. "And I take my alternative merger proposal with me." "Don't threaten me, boy," Lawrence growled. "You're in no position to make demands." "It's not a threat, sir, it's a choice. Accept our relationship and work with us to find a solution, or lose both of us, and the merger entirely." The tension in the study was suffocating. Charlotte looked between her father and Gabriel, seeing two immovable forces about to collide. Then her mother spoke, her voice surprisingly gentle. "Lawrence, perhaps we should consider—" She was interrupted by Charlotte's phone ringing. The screen showed an international number. "It's Isabella," Charlotte breathed, her hand shaking as she looked at the display. The room fell silent. Even Lawrence Weber seemed to hold his breath. "Answer it," Gabriel said softly. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Charlotte took a deep breath and pressed the green button, her heart pounding as she waited to hear her sister's voice. "Hello?" Charlotte's voice trembled as she answered the phone. The study fell silent. Everyone, watching her intently. For a long moment there was only the sound of breathing on the other end. Then Isabella's voice, tight with emotion. "I made it to London." "Bella, Don't." Isabella cut her off. "I'm not calling for apologies. Aunt Margaret showed me the press releases Dad's team prepared. Is it true? Are they really trying to cover this up?" Charlotte glanced at her father, who was watching her intently. "Yes, they want to protect the companies. And you." A bitter laugh crackled through the phone. "Protect me? The entire Boston social circle already knows. My phone hasn't stopped ringing since I left. Even here in London, people are asking questions." "What do you want me to do?" Charlotte asked, her free hand unconsciously moving to her stomach. "Tell me how to fix this." Fix this? Isabella's voice rose. You can't fix this, Charlotte. You can't undo what you did, what both of you did. She paused, and Charlotte could hear her taking deep breaths. But you can stop lying. Stop pretending this was some mutual decision or amicable separation. Gabriel moved closer to Charlotte, and she put the phone on speaker. Lawrence Weber stood from his desk frowning. Isabella, he began, we're trying to manage this situation. No, Dad, Isabella interrupted. You're trying to manage the optics. Well, I won't be part of another lie. I won't smile and nod and pretend my sister and my fiancé didn't betray me. Then what do you want? Charlotte asked softly. The truth, Isabella said firmly. Release, a statement telling exactly what happened. No spin, no corporate doublespeak, just the truth. Mrs. Weber gasped. Isabella, dear, think about what you're saying. The scandal will happen anyway, Isabella finished. At least this way, we control the narrative. And maybe, her voice caught, maybe it helps me heal, knowing that at least now you're being honest. Charlotte felt tears rolling down her cheeks. I never meant to hurt you, Bella. I know that doesn't change anything, but it's true. But you did hurt me. Both of you did. Isabella's voice hardened. Gabriel, I know you're there. Are you going to say anything? Gabriel cleared his throat. I'm sorry, Isabella. You deserved better from both of us. Yes, I did. The line went quiet for a moment. I've asked Aunt Margaret if I can stay here indefinitely. She's already talking to Oxford about a visiting scholar position in their economics department. You're not coming back? Charlotte's mother's voice cracked. Not for a while. I need space, time, a life that's completely my own. Isabella took a shaky breath. Dad, call off the PR team. Let the truth come out. I won't have people whispering and wondering. I won't be the poor jilted society girl who quietly disappeared. Lawrence Weber sank back into his chair looking defeated. And the companies, the merger, are not my problem anymore, Isabella said firmly. Figure it out without using my life as a bargaining chip. Charlotte wiped her eyes. Bella, the baby. I know, Isabella cut her off. Aunt Margaret told me morning sickness is worst in the first trimester. Take care of yourself. And Charlotte? Her voice softened slightly. Despite everything, I don't wish you ill. Either of you. I can't be part of your lives right now. I understand, Charlotte whispered, though her heart was breaking. I have to go, Isabella said. I'll have my lawyer contact you about transferring my shares in the company to a blind trust. I don't want any part of this anymore. Before anyone could respond, the line went dead. The study fell into heavy silence, broken only by the ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the corner. Lawrence Weber reached for his scotch with a slightly trembling hand. Well, he said after taking a long drink, it seems we have a decision to make. Isabella's right, Gabriel said firmly. No more lies, no more manipulation. We release. A simple statement acknowledging the end of the engagement and our relationship. The business implications can be handled separately. The shareholders, Lawrence began, but Charlotte interrupted. We'll have to deal with it. Isabella's right. Dad, we can't keep managing everything for appearances' sake. Look where that got us. Adrienne Weber moved to stand behind her husband's chair, placing a hand on his shoulder. Perhaps it's time we stop trying to control everything. Our daughters are adults. They've made their choices, for better or worse. Choices have consequences, Lawrence said heavily. Yes, they do, Charlotte agreed. And we're ready to face them, all of them. She reached for Gabriel's hand, drawing strength from his presence. I'll draft my resignation letter tonight. No, her father said, surprising everyone. No more rashness, no more sudden decisions. He stood, walking to the window that overlooked the garden where his daughters had played as children. We'll release a statement tomorrow, telling the truth as Isabella requested. Then we'll take some time, all of us, to figure out next steps. Lawrence? Adrienne questioned. I've spent my entire life building this company, protecting this family's reputation. He continued, still staring out the window. But what good is a reputation built on lies? What good is success if it costs us our children? He turned back, to face them, looking somehow both older and more resolute. Gabriel, your alternative merger proposal. Walk me through it again. Charlotte, you'll stay on as VP of Operations for now, but we'll need to discuss succession planning given your condition. You're serious? Charlotte couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. Deadly serious, her father replied. If we're going to weather this storm, and make no mistake, it will be a storm, we need to be united and honest. He looked at Gabriel. You love my daughter? Yes, sir, more than anything. And you're prepared to face the consequences of your actions? Both of you? Charlotte and Gabriel exchanged glances before answering in unison. Yes. Lawrence nodded slowly. Then let's get to work. Margaret, he called to his wife, get the house in Martha's Vineyard ready. Once the statement is released, we'll all need somewhere quiet to regroup and plan. As her parents began discussing logistics, Charlotte felt Gabriel squeeze her hand. Looking up at him, she saw her own mix of relief, grief, and hope reflected in his eyes. They had lost so much. Isabella's trust, their carefully constructed reputations, the easy path they'd always followed. But they had gained something too, the freedom to be honest, to love openly, to build a future on truth rather than appearances. Outside, the Boston night was alive with lights and possibility. Somewhere across the ocean, Isabella was starting her own new chapter. And here, in her father's study, surrounded by the wreckage of their old lives, Charlotte felt something she hadn't expected: peace. Whatever came next would be difficult, but at least now they could face it honestly, together. The Weber family's Martha's Vineyard estate stood like a sentinel against the October wind, its weathered shingles and white trim a testament to generations of New England summers. Now, as Charlotte walked along the private beach, the tourist crowds were gone, leaving only the sound of crashing waves and crying seagulls. The morning's Boston Globe lay rolled up in her coat pocket, heavy as lead. The headline still burned in her mind. Weber-Richardson engagement ends amid family drama. At least they'd controlled the narrative, just as Isabella wanted. The statement had been clear and direct, acknowledging the end of the engagement and Charlotte's relationship with Gabriel, while requesting privacy during this family matter. Her phone buzzed, another message from the office. The announcement had sent Weber Industries stock down 8% in early trading. The Richardson Technologies Board was meeting in emergency session, but here on the island, those concerns felt distant, carried away by the salty breeze. I thought I'd find you here. Gabriel's voice came from behind her. He looked different in casual clothes, jeans and a thick sweater instead of his usual suits. More relaxed, despite everything. Your mother's asking for you. The caterers need final numbers for tonight. Charlotte turned to face him, wrapping her arms around herself against the chill. I still think this dinner party is a terrible idea. Your father says we need to show a united front to the Summer families who still haven't left the island. Let them see we're not hiding in shame. Aren't we? Charlotte kicked at the sand. Isn't that exactly what we're doing here? Gabriel moved closer, wrapping his arms around her from behind, his hands resting protectively over her stomach. We're regrouping, not hiding. There's a difference. The past week had been a blur of lawyers, press statements, and hurried packing. The Vineyard House had been closed for the season, but Mrs. Rodriguez had worked miracles getting it ready, on short notice. Now both families were here, minus Isabella and Mrs. Richardson, who had refused to come. My father wants to announce the new merger structure next week, Gabriel said softly. He thinks the sooner we show it's business as usual, the better. Is anything usual anymore? Charlotte turned in his arms to face him. The board members barely look at me in meetings. My own assistant asked for a transfer. It will get better, Gabriel promised, though they both knew it wasn't that simple. The alternative merger proposal is solid. Once people see the business logic, they'll focus on that instead of... Instead of the scandal? Charlotte finished wryly. The betrayal? The pregnancy? Before Gabriel could respond, they heard footsteps on the wooden boardwalk leading to the beach. Lawrence Weber approached, looking oddly casual in khakis and a cable-knit sweater. The first guest will arrive in 3 hours, he announced without preamble. Charlotte, your mother needs you to review the seating arrangements. And Gabriel, my study. Your father wants to discuss the board's concerns. As they walked back to the house, Charlotte couldn't help but notice how different it looked in autumn. The flowering bushes were bare, the lawn furniture stored away, the tennis courts empty. Yet there was beauty in its starkness, a kind of honesty in seeing things stripped down to their essence. Inside, the house was warm and fragrant with cooking smells. The staff moved efficiently, preparing for the evening's dinner party. Charlotte found her mother in the dining room, surrounded by place cards and seating charts. There you are, Adrian said, looking up. The Carmichaels confirmed they're coming. That makes 28 for dinner. The Carmichaels? Charlotte's stomach churned. Mom, their daughter was one of Isabella's bridesmaids. Exactly why we need them here, Adrienne replied firmly. To show there's no awkwardness, no shame. But there is awkwardness, Charlotte protested. And maybe there should be some shame. What's done is done, her mother cut her off. Now we manage the aftermath. That's what this family has always done. Charlotte sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. I got another message from Isabella this morning. She's started her research position at Oxford. She sounds different, more independent. Something flickered across Adrienne's face, pride mixed with sadness. Perhaps this will be good for her in the long run. She's always lived in your shadow, you know. Mom. Oh, don't look so shocked. You were always the driven one, the successful one. Isabella followed your lead in everything. Maybe now she'll find her own path. Charlotte had never thought of it that way. Had she unknowingly overshadowed her sister all these years? Had that made her betrayal even worse? A commotion from the front of the house interrupted her thoughts. Gabriel's father, Richard Richardson, stormed down the main staircase, his face thunderous. This is unacceptable, he shouted. Absolutely unacceptable. Lawrence Weber emerged. From his study, Gabriel close behind. Keep your voice down, Richard. The staff, damn the staff, and damn this whole charade. Richard waved his phone angrily. The board is considering a vote of no confidence. In my own son. My wife is talking about divorce, and you want to play happy families at a dinner party? Charlotte stood, moving instinctively toward Gabriel, but her mother held her back. Let them handle this, Adrienne whispered. The dinner party stands, Lawrence said firmly. We show strength, unity. The votes will fall in line. Unity? Richard laughed bitterly. My family is destroyed. My son threw away everything for... He stopped, looking at Charlotte with undisguised contempt. Choose your next words very carefully. Gabriel's voice was quiet, but steel hard. That's my child's mother you're talking about. The tension in the foyer was suffocating. Charlotte felt her mother's hand tighten on her arm. Then, unexpectedly, Mrs. Rodriguez appeared with a tea tray. Gentlemen, she said calmly, as if walking into a normal family discussion. Perhaps some tea would help. I've just baked fresh scones. The absurd normality of it, tea and scones in the midst of family warfare, broke the tension. Richard deflated slightly, running a hand over his face. I apologize, he said stiffly. This situation, it's difficult. For all of us, Lawrence agreed, which is why we stand together. Tonight we show the world that both families are strong, united in supporting the new merger structure and... He paused, looking at Charlotte and Gabriel, and the choices our, children have made. As the men moved into the study with their tea, Charlotte felt a flutter in her stomach. Too early to be the baby, just nerves and emotion. Her mother had returned to the seating charts, and Mrs. Rodriguez was directing, the staff in hanging fresh garlands as if nothing had happened. Gabriel caught her eye across the foyer, and despite everything, she felt a surge of love and certainty. Whatever came next, the dinner party, the merger announcement, the months of pregnancy and adjustment ahead, They would face it together. "Come on," she said, taking his hand. "Let's help Mom with these seating arrangements. Apparently we have a united front to present." As they worked on the place cards, Charlotte thought about Isabella, forging her new path in London. About Mrs. Richardson, alone in their Boston mansion. About the baby growing inside her who would be born into this complicated, messy, loving family. The autumn sun streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the dining room floor, and Charlotte realized that sometimes the most beautiful things come after the storms, when everything has been washed clean and can begin again. The dining room of the Weber's Martha's Vineyard estate glowed with candlelight, crystal, and forced civility. 28 of Boston's elite sat around the massive mahogany table, their quiet conversations punctuated by the gentle clink of sterling, silver against fine china. Charlotte, seated at the center of the table, felt like an actor in an elaborate play, every movement watched and judged. "The lobster bisque is divine, Adrienne," Patricia Carmichael commented, her voice carrying just slightly too far to be natural. "Almost makes one forget we're here for damage control rather than pleasure." A pointed silence followed. Charlotte's mother smiled tightly. "We're here to enjoy good food and good company, Patricia. Nothing more." "Of course," Patricia replied, her eyes sliding to where Gabriel sat beside Charlotte. "Though I must say some of the company is unexpected." Before anyone could respond, Lawrence Weber stood, commanding attention with the ease of long practice. "I'd like to propose a toast," he announced, raising his crystal wine glass. "To family, to friendship, and to new beginnings." The guests murmured and raised their glasses, though Charlotte noticed several remained barely touched. She lifted her water glass, fighting a wave of morning sickness that chose this moment to make an appearance. "Speaking of new beginnings," Richard Richardson spoke up, his voice carrying an edge despite his pleasant expression. "Perhaps Gabriel would like to share the exciting developments at Richardson Technologies." Charlotte felt Gabriel tense beside her. This wasn't part of the plan. They weren't supposed to discuss business until next week's formal announcement. "Actually, Dad," Gabriel said smoothly, "I think we should save shop talk for—" "Nonsense," Richard interrupted. "Everyone here is practically family. They should know how my son plans to restructure our entire company's future." The emphasis on entire company hung heavy in the air. Lawrence Weber cleared his throat. "Richard, perhaps this isn't the best—" "Oh, let him speak," Margaret Winthrop chimed in from her end of the table. "We're all dying to know how this modern Romeo and Juliet tale affects our investments." Charlotte felt heat rising in her cheeks. Under the table, Gabriel's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "The merger restructuring will benefit both companies," Gabriel said firmly. "The new proposal actually offers better shareholder value and more strategic flexibility." "And what about family values?" Patricia Carmichael asked pointedly. "Do those factor into your calculations?" "That's enough." Adrienne Weber's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "We're here to enjoy dinner, not conduct a shareholder meeting." But the damage was done. The pretense of normalcy had cracked, revealing the churning emotions beneath. Charlotte excused herself, nearly running from the dining room. She made it to the powder room just in time, retching into the toilet while tears streamed down her face. A soft knock at the door was followed by Mrs. Rodriguez's voice. "Miss Charlotte? I've brought you some ginger ale." Charlotte opened the door, accepting the crystal glass gratefully. The housekeeper looked at her with motherly concern. "Your mother sent everyone into the living room for coffee," Mrs. Rodriguez reported. "Mr. Gabriel is handling questions about the business merger. Very professional, very calm." "He shouldn't have to handle it alone," Charlotte said, wiping her face with a damp cloth. "I need to go back." "You need to take care of yourself and that baby," Mrs. Rodriguez corrected gently. "The others can manage their own drama." But Charlotte was already checking her makeup in the mirror, squaring her shoulders. "No more hiding," she said firmly. "No more letting others fight our battles." When she returned to the living room, the tension was thick enough to cut. "Gabrielle," stood near the fireplace explaining something about market synergies to a group of concerned-looking men. Her father and Richard Richardson were in an intense discussion by the windows. The women had clustered in small groups, their whispered conversations stopping whenever anyone passed too close. Charlotte walked directly to Gabriel's side, slipping her arm through his. "I believe," she said clearly, addressing the room at large, "that we owe everyone here an explanation." "Charlotte," her mother warned, but she continued. "Yes, Gabriel and I fell in love. Yes, the timing was terrible, and yes, we hurt people we care about deeply. We're not proud of how things happened, but we're not ashamed of our love either." Her voice grew stronger. "The merger between our companies was never just about a marriage. It's about creating something stronger together than we could build apart. That hasn't changed." "And Isabella?" Patricia Carmichael asked. "What about her dreams?" "Isabella is building new dreams in London," Charlotte replied, her heart aching but her voice steady. "She's stronger than anyone here gives her credit, for she's choosing her own path now, away from family expectations and arranged marriages." "The baby?" someone else asked quietly. "Will be born into two strong families," Gabriel answered, his arm tightening around Charlotte. "A child who will know nothing but love and truth." Richard Richardson made a scoffing sound, but Lawrence Weber stepped forward. "Enough," he said, firmly. "My daughter is right. We can either tear ourselves apart with recrimination and judgment, or we can move forward together. The choice is yours. But know this, I stand with my children, all of them, and I expect my friends to respect that." A heavy silence fell over the room. Then, surprisingly, Margaret Winthrop spoke up. "Well, I for one think it's refreshing," she announced, earning startled looks. "All these years of arranged marriages and mergers disguised as love matches. At least this is honest. Messy, yes, but honest." "Honest?" Patricia Carmichael sputtered. "It's a scandal." "It's life," Margaret countered. "Messy, complicated, real life. And I, for one, would rather invest in companies run by real people than perfect puppets." The ice began to crack after that. Not completely, but enough. Some guests made their excuses and left early, but others stayed, asking genuine questions about the merger restructuring, offering cautious congratulations on the pregnancy. Later that night, after the last guest had gone, Charlotte stood on the back deck watching the moonlight play on the waves. Gabriel joined her, wrapping a warm blanket around them both. "That was either very brave or very foolish," he said softly. "Maybe both," she admitted. "But I'm tired of pretending. Tired of perfect facades hiding messy truths." "Margaret Winthrop controls a significant voting bloc," Gabriel mused. "Having her support could sway the board." "Is that why you think she spoke up?" "No," he smiled. "I think she spoke up because she's been waiting 60 years to tell Patricia Carmichael to stuff it." Charlotte laughed, the sound carrying across the dark water. From inside, she could hear her parents and Gabriel's father still talking, their voices more relaxed now. The night had been a turning point, though whether for better or worse remained to be seen. "I heard from Isabella again," she said quietly. "Just a text. She started seeing someone, a professor in the economics department." Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "Is she happy?" I think she's finding her way to happy, on her own terms." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge above the dark Atlantic. The baby fluttered again, a reminder of the future growing within her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, board meetings, public reactions, family, dynamics to navigate. But tonight, wrapped in warmth and honesty, Charlotte felt at peace with their choices. Sometimes, she realized, you have to break something completely before you can rebuild it stronger. Like the beach glass she used to collect as a child, made beautiful by being broken and tumbled by the waves. Their families would never be the same, but maybe they could be something new, something real and lasting, built on truth instead of appearances. November arrived with bitter winds and unexpected revelations. Charlotte sat in her father's Boston office, reviewing the latest merger proposals while trying to ignore the morning sickness that still plagued her at 12 weeks pregnant. The view of the financial district through the floor-to-ceiling windows showed a city preparing for winter, trees bare against a steel-gray sky. "The proxy votes are coming in," Lawrence announced, entering the office with Gabriel and Richard Richardson behind him. Margaret Winthrop's support made a difference. "We're trending positive." Charlotte straightened in her chair, noticing how her father and Richard seemed more relaxed around each other now. The past 3 weeks since the Martha's Vineyard dinner had brought subtle but significant changes in family dynamics. "What about the holdouts?" Gabriel asked, loosening his tie as he sat beside Charlotte. "Anderson's group is still pushing back." "Anderson's group," Richard said with unexpected humor, "just lost their biggest ally. Patricia Carmichael's son called this morning. They're voting in favor of the restructuring." Charlotte blinked in surprise. Patricia Carmichael? But she was the most opposed. "Apparently," Richard continued, "her son reminded her that their family fortune came from his grandfather running off with his secretary and starting a new company, glass houses, stones, and all that." The irony of the situation wasn't lost on any of them. Even Lawrence allowed himself a small smile. "There's something else," Richard said, his expression growing serious. "I heard from your mother this morning, Gabriel. She's asking to meet with Charlotte." The room fell silent. Mrs. Richardson had been the most vocal opponent of their relationship, refusing all contact since the revelation. Her sudden desire to meet sent anxiety coursing through Charlotte's veins. "What does she want?" Gabriel asked protectively. "To talk," Richard replied. "She's been spending time with your sister, Charlotte. Isabella's perspective seems to have affected her." Charlotte's heart skipped a beat at the mention of her sister. Though they'd exchanged occasional texts, Isabella remained distant, building her new life in London. "I'll meet with her," Charlotte decided. "Whatever she has to say, I'll listen." "Not alone," Gabriel insisted, but Charlotte shook her head. "Yes, alone. This needs to be between us." Lawrence cleared his throat. "Before that happens, there's another matter we need to discuss." He pulled out a folder marked Confidential. "The board has been discussing succession planning." "Dad, I told you I'm not stepping down just because I'm pregnant," Charlotte began, but her father held up a hand. "Not you. Me." The announcement landed like a stone in still water, ripples of shock spreading through the room. Lawrence Weber had been CEO of Weber Industries for nearly 30 years. "The past few months have shown me something," Lawrence continued. "The world is changing. The old ways of doing business, arranged marriages, dynastic mergers, they're becoming obsolete. We need new leadership for a new era." "Lawrence," Richard started, but Lawrence pressed on. "I'm proposing a joint leadership structure. Charlotte and Gabriel as co-CEOs of the merged company, with both families maintaining significant board representation." He looked at his daughter and almost son-in-law. "You've proven you can weather a crisis together. You've shown innovation in restructuring the merger. Most importantly, you've demonstrated that honesty and transparency can be strengths, not weaknesses." The proposal hung in the air like a challenge. Charlotte felt Gabriel's hand find hers under the table. "The board will never approve," Richard said, but without his usual certainty. "The board," Lawrence smiled, "already has. Preliminarily, at least." Margaret Winthrop was quite persuasive. Something about new blood and modern perspectives. Before anyone could respond, Charlotte's phone buzzed with a message. Looking down, she saw Isabella's name and felt her breath catch. "What is it?" Gabriel asked softly. Charlotte read the message aloud. "Just heard about Dad's succession plan. He ran it by me last week. You and Gabriel will be great leaders. Just promise me one thing. No more arranged marriages in the family business. Ever. Love, Bella." "She knew?" Charlotte looked at her father in surprise. Lawrence nodded. "I called her myself. She's still part of this family, still has a voice in our future. She suggested some of the structure, actually, that Oxford economics education is serving her well." Tears pricked at Charlotte's eyes. Hormones, she told herself, but knowing it was more than that. It was hope, seeing how broken things could be mended in unexpected ways. The intercom buzzed. Mrs. Richardson is here, Lawrence's assistant announced. Charlotte stood, smoothing her dress over her slightly rounded stomach. Well, I guess it's time to face the final hurdle. Charlotte, Richard stopped her at the door. My wife. She's stubborn, proud, and slow to change, but she loves her family. All of her family. The emphasis on all wasn't lost on Charlotte. She nodded, squared her shoulders, and walked out to meet her future mother-in-law. Helen Richardson stood by the reception desk, elegant as always in a Chanel suit, her silver hair perfectly styled. When she saw Charlotte, something flickered in her eyes, recognition perhaps of changes in both of them. Mrs. Richardson, Charlotte began, but the older woman cut her off. Helen, please, we should be past formality, don't you think? She gestured to a nearby conference room. Shall we talk privately? The conference room offered another stunning view of Boston, the city where both their families had built their legacies. Charlotte waited as Helen settled into a chair, noting how her hands twisted her wedding ring, a nervous gesture she shared with Gabriel. Isabella sends her love, Helen said unexpectedly. I visited her in London last week. She's flourishing. Independent in a way I never expected. I'm glad, Charlotte said softly. She deserves happiness. Yes, she does, as do you. Helen met Charlotte's eyes directly. I was wrong, Charlotte. Not about the pain this caused. That was real and significant. But I was wrong to let that pain blind me to the possibility of something good emerging from it. Charlotte felt tears threatening again. Damn pregnancy hormones. I'm not asking for instant forgiveness, Helen continued, but I am asking for a chance to be part of your child's life, part of your and Gabriel's life, if you'll allow it. The sincerity in her voice was unmistakable. Charlotte reached across the table, taking Helen's hand in hers. I'd like that, she said simply. Very much. Outside the conference room, Boston continued its busy pace, unaware of the small reconciliations and large changes happening in the offices above. Charlotte thought about the baby growing inside her, who would be born into a family that had learned the hard way about truth, forgiveness, and the courage to change. Helen squeezed her hand. Now tell me about my grandchild, and perhaps we could look at nursery designs together. As they began to talk, Charlotte felt another piece of their broken world slide into place, not hiding the cracks, but making them part of a stronger, more honest whole. The merger announcement press conference was scheduled for 9 in the morning, but Charlotte had been awake since dawn. At 16 weeks pregnant, her morning sickness had finally subsided, replaced by a constant flutter of movement that reminded her of butterflies. She stood in front of the full-length mirror in their new Beacon Hill townhouse, adjusting her blazer to accommodate her growing bump. The car's here, Gabriel called from downstairs. You ready for this? Today would mark their first public appearance as co-CEOs of the newly merged Weber Richardson Global. The past month had been a whirlwind of board meetings, shareholder presentations, and legal documents. But finally, everything was in place. Coming, Charlotte replied, grabbing her briefcase. She paused at the top of the stairs, taking in the sight of their partly unpacked home. Boxes still lined the hallway, waiting to be sorted. They'd decided to start fresh, choosing a place that was theirs alone, untainted by past complications. Gabriel waited by the door, handsome in his charcoal suit. His eyes softened when he saw her. You look beautiful. I look nervous, she corrected but accepted his kiss. Did you see the morning papers? All positive coverage, he assured her. The business press loves the innovative merger structure. The society pages are focusing on the modern approach to family business, succession. The drive to Weber Industries headquarters was quiet, both lost in thought. Outside, Boston was coming alive. Coffee shops filling with morning commuters, students rushing to class, tourists already gathering around historic sites. Isabella's flight lands at 3, Charlotte said, breaking the silence. Mom's picking her up. It would be Isabella's first visit home since everything happened, She'd timed it deliberately to coincide with the merger announcement, a show of support that meant more than any press coverage. The press conference was being held in the grand lobby of Weber Industries building. As their car pulled up, Charlotte could see reporters gathering, cameras being set up. Her father and Richard Richardson stood at the entrance, both looking surprisingly relaxed. "There they are," Lawrence called as they approached. "The future of Weber Richardson Global." The next hour passed in a blur of handshakes, photographs, and carefully worded statements. Charlotte and Gabriel presented the merger details with practiced ease, their voices steady as they outlined their vision for the combined company's future. The reporters seemed particularly interested in their joint leadership structure, unprecedented in Boston's corporate history. "Ms. Weber," one reporter called out, "how do you respond to critics who say personal relationships shouldn't mix with business leadership?" Charlotte felt Gabriel tense beside her, but she smiled confidently. "I'd say they're missing the point. Good leadership isn't about separating personal and professional values. It's about bringing your whole self to the table. Our experience has taught us the importance of transparency, honest communication, and facing challenges together. Those are exactly the qualities we're bringing to Weber Richardson Global." The answer earned approving nods from several business reporters. Even Richard Richardson looked proud. After the press conference, they gathered in Lawrence's office, soon to be Charlotte and Gabriel's joint office, for a private celebration. Helen Richardson arrived with champagne and sparkling cider for Charlotte, her relationship with her future daughter-in-law warming gradually but steadily. "A toast," Lawrence proposed, raising his glass, "to the next generation of leadership and to families strong enough to change." The moment was interrupted by Charlotte's phone buzzing. A text from Isabella. "Just landed, early flight. Coming straight there if that's okay." Charlotte's heart raced as she showed the message to Gabriel. Though they'd been in regular contact lately, this would be their first face-to-face meeting since everything happened. 20 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Isabella stepped out. She looked different, more confident somehow. Her London style was evident in her elegant wool coat and boots, but it was more than that. She carried herself with new assurance. The room fell silent as she walked in. Charlotte stepped forward, uncertain of her welcome, but Isabella surprised everyone by pulling her sister into a tight hug. "Look at you," Isabella said, stepping back to examine Charlotte's baby bump. "You're glowing." "Bella, No more apologies," Isabella cut her off firmly. "We've done enough of that over the phone. I'm here to celebrate my sister and former fiancé becoming corporate powerhouses." Her tone was light, but her eyes were sincere. "Life's too short for holding on to pain when there's joy to be found." Gabriel approached cautiously, but Isabella hugged him too. "Take care of each other," she whispered, loud enough for Charlotte to hear. "And take care of my niece or nephew." The tension in the room dissolved into genuine celebration. As their parents opened more champagne, Isabella pulled Charlotte aside. "I have news," she said quietly. "That professor I mentioned? We're engaged." "Bella, that's wonderful." "It's fast, I know," Isabella admitted. "But when you know, you know. And this time it's completely my choice. No family arrangements, no business considerations. Just love." Charlotte felt tears threatening. "Will you stay in London?" "For now. William's research is there, and I'm loving my work at Oxford. But we'll visit often." She patted Charlotte's stomach. "This little one needs to know their aunt, Isabella." Across the room, their mother was deep in conversation with Helen Richardson, probably discussing nursery plans. Their fathers were explaining something about market projections to Gabriel, who kept glancing over at Charlotte with love in his eyes. "Did you ever think," Isabella mused, "that this is how things would turn out? That breaking everything apart would somehow make it stronger?" Charlotte thought about the past few months, the pain, the growth, the unexpected moments of grace. "No, but I'm grateful it did." "Me too," Isabella said softly. "Strange as that sounds, I'm grateful too." Later that evening, after the Celebrations wound down. Charlotte and Gabriel walked through Boston Common, enjoying the early December twilight. Christmas lights were already appearing in trees and shop fronts, giving the city a magical glow. "Isabella seems happy," Gabriel observed. "She is," Charlotte agreed. "Really, truly happy. On her own terms." They stopped by the pond, where ducks were settling in for the night. Gabriel pulled Charlotte close, his hand resting on her bump where their child grew stronger every day. "The press conference went well," he said. "Stock prices are up. The board is satisfied. Everything we hoped for." "Almost everything," Charlotte corrected, thinking of the painful path that led them here. "Hey," Gabriel turned her to face him. "We can't change how things happened, but we can learn from it. Build something better." Charlotte nodded, leaning into his embrace. Above them, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, merging corporate cultures, balancing leadership, responsibilities, preparing for their child's arrival. But tonight, surrounded by the city they loved and supported by a family that had learned to bend rather than break, Charlotte felt nothing but hope for the future they were building together. December brought heavy snow to Boston, transforming the city into a winter wonderland. At 20 weeks pregnant, Charlotte sat in her doctor's office, holding Gabriel's hand tightly as they waited for their anatomy scan. The past month had been a whirlwind of corporate transitions and family healing, but this moment was just about them and their baby. "Ready to meet your little one?" Dr. Madison asked, entering with her usual warm smile. "And find out if you're having a boy or girl?" "Yes," Gabriel answered immediately, while Charlotte nodded, too emotional to speak. As the ultrasound image appeared on the screen, Charlotte felt tears sliding down her cheeks. The baby was so much bigger now, moving, and stretching as if performing for the camera. "Congratulations," Dr. Madison announced. "You're having a girl. A daughter." Charlotte looked at Gabriel, seeing her own joy reflected in his eyes. They'd discussed names but hadn't settled on one, wanting to wait until they knew. "She's perfect," Dr. Madison continued, pointing out various features. "Strong, heartbeat, good size, everything developing right on track." Leaving the doctor's office, they walked through the snowy streets, both lost in thought. Their breath formed clouds in the cold air, and Christmas decorations twinkled from every storefront. "A daughter," Gabriel said softly, squeezing Charlotte's hand. "I can already imagine her running around the office learning the business from both of us." "Or doing something completely different," Charlotte replied. "No expectations, remember? No arranged futures." They'd made that promise to themselves and each other. Their daughter would be free to choose her own path, whatever that might be. Charlotte's phone buzzed with a message from Isabella. "Well, boy or girl, your future aunt-to-be is dying to know. William says hello from Oxford." As Charlotte typed back the news, another message came through from Helen Richardson. "Having lunch with your mother. We may have gotten carried away at the baby boutique. Don't be alarmed by the number of packages being delivered." Gabriel laughed when she showed him the message. Those two have become quite the team. It was true. Their mothers had channeled their energy into preparing for their granddaughter, transforming from reluctant in-laws to close friends in the process. They reached Beacon Hill just as fresh snow began to fall. Their townhouse, now fully unpacked and decorated for Christmas, looked like something from a holiday card. Inside, evidence of their impending parenthood was everywhere. Baby books stacked on coffee tables, a corner of the living room already designated for a nursery. "Isabella's coming home for Christmas," Charlotte said as they settled onto the couch. "She and William will stay through New Year's." "Mom's thrilled," Gabriel added. "She's already planning the holiday menu around Isabella's British professor's tastes." The mention of holiday plans reminded Charlotte of something. "The company Christmas party is next week, our first official event as co-CEOs." "Nervous?" "A little," she admitted. "It's different now, being visible as leaders while preparing to be parents. Some of the old guard still have doubts." Gabriel pulled her closer. "Let them doubt. We've proven ourselves in the merger transition. The quarterly projections are strong, and more importantly, we're happy. Charlotte thought about how much had changed since last Christmas. The secrets, the pain, the fear, all transformed into something unexpected and beautiful. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her father. Board meeting finished early. Your mother insists you both come for dinner. No excuses. She and Helen have nursery plans to discuss. Should we tell them we've already decided on the nursery design? Gabriel asked, reading over her shoulder. Charlotte laughed. And spoil their fun? Never. As they prepared to leave, Charlotte paused in what would soon be their daughter's room. The winter light filtered through the windows, casting soft shadows on the pale yellow walls they'd chosen together. A rocking chair, a gift from Richard Richardson, sat in the corner waiting for late-night feedings and quiet moments. "What are you thinking about?" Gabriel asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Everything, nothing." She leaned back against him. How different things were a year ago. How right they feel now. Any regrets? About us? Never. She turned to face him. About how things happened? Yes. I wish we'd been honest sooner, caused less pain, but I don't regret where we are now. They were interrupted by another text. This one a group message from Isabella to both families. Official announcement. William and I are having a spring wedding in London. Yes, it's fast. No, it's not because of any mergers, pregnancies, or family expectations, just love. Charlie, hope you're up for being a very pregnant maid of honor. Charlotte felt happy tears forming again. Damn hormones. She's really found her happiness, hasn't she? We all have, Gabriel replied. Just not in the ways we expected. The doorbell rang. Their mothers probably impatient to share their nursery plans. As they headed downstairs, Charlotte caught a glimpse of their reflection in the hallway mirror. Gabriel in his business suit, her in a maternity dress that elegantly showcased her growing bump, both of them looking happier and more relaxed than they had in months. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the city in a fresh blanket of white. It felt like a clean slate, a new beginning. Their daughter would be born in spring, when the world was waking up and everything was possible. "Ready?" Gabrielle asked, helping her with her coat. Charlotte nodded, thinking of the dinner ahead, the holidays to come, the lifetime they were building together. "Ready for anything," she replied, and meant it. Their mothers' voices carried through the door, excited and harmonious. The future stretched before them, not perfect but real, built on truth and love rather than expectations and arrangements. As they stepped out into the snowy evening, Charlotte felt their daughter move, a reminder that the best things in life often come from accepting change and having the courage to choose love, even when the path is difficult. Spring sunshine streamed through the windows of London's St. Paul's Cathedral as Isabella walked down the aisle toward William, her face radiant with joy. At 32 weeks pregnant, Charlotte stood beside the altar as maid of honor, holding a bouquet of English garden roses and fighting back tears of happiness for her sister. The past 4 months had transformed their lives in ways none of them could have predicted. Weber Richardson Global's first quarter under joint leadership had exceeded all expectations, silencing the remaining critics. But more importantly, their families had found a new rhythm, a way of being together that felt both honest and healing. William beamed as Isabella reached him, his academic demeanor softening into pure adoration. Charlotte caught Gabriel's eye from his place in the front row, remembering their own private ceremony 2 months ago. A quiet affair at Boston City Hall, witnessed by their immediate family. They'd decided to wait until after their daughter's birth for a larger celebration. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, his British accent echoing through the historic cathedral. Charlotte shifted slightly, trying to find a comfortable position. Her niece or nephew kicked inside her as if sensing the importance of the moment. Isabella had insisted on a traditional English ceremony, complete with choir and formal procession. Their mother and Helen Richardson had initially fretted about the lack of social prominence. A small college chapel would have sufficed for a professor's wedding, but Isabella stood firm. This was her choice, her day, her life. A year ago, Isabella's voice was clear and strong as she read her vows. I thought I knew exactly what my future would hold. I'm so grateful I was wrong. William, you've shown me that real love isn't arranged or planned. It's discovered, chosen, and cherished. Charlotte felt the baby move again and pressed a hand to her stomach. Gabriel, catching the gesture, moved as if to stand, but she gave him a reassuring smile. She wouldn't miss this moment for anything. After the ceremony, the reception was held in one of Oxford's historic college halls where William taught. Academic regalia hung on the walls alongside ancient crests, lending a uniquely British atmosphere to the celebration. You should be sitting down, Gabriel fussed, pulling out a chair for Charlotte. I'm fine, she insisted, but accepted the seat. The doctor cleared me for travel. Barely, he reminded her, and only because you promised to take it easy. Their daughter, already showing signs of her mother's determination, chose that moment to deliver a particularly energetic kick. Gabriel laid his hand over Charlotte's bump, feeling the movement. She sang hello to her Aunt Isabella. Charlotte laughed. As if summoned by her name, Isabella appeared, her wedding dress floating around her as she sat beside them. My feet are killing me, she announced cheerfully. William's trying to explain the college's architectural history to Mom and Helen. I gave him 10 minutes before they steer the conversation back to baby preparations. 5 minutes, Charlotte countered, and they both laughed. I can't believe how different everything is from last spring, Isabella mused, watching the mixed crowd of academics and Boston society mingle comfortably. Remember those awful merger planning meetings? I try not to, Charlotte admitted. Bella, Stop. Isabella took her sister's hand. We're past that. Look at us now. You're about to have a baby. I just married the love of my life, and our families are actually getting along. Who would have thought? Their fathers approached, both slightly flushed from champagne and British hospitality. Lawrence Weber kissed Isabella's cheek. Your mother's already planning Christmas in London. Apparently we're starting a new family tradition. As long as you don't try to arrange any marriages while you're here, Isabella teased, and to everyone's surprise, Lawrence laughed. No more arrangements, he promised. Though I have to admit, this professor of yours has some fascinating ideas about economic theory. Dad, Charlotte groaned. It's his wedding day, no business talk. Actually, William joined them, sliding, an arm around Isabella's waist. Your father and I were discussing the possibility of Weber Richardson Global funding a research center at Oxford. Pure academics, no strings attached. See? Isabella beamed. Some business deals can come from love rather than the other way around. The celebration continued as evening fell, fairy lights twinkling in the college gardens. Charlotte watched, her sister dance with her new husband, their happiness lighting up the room. Gabriel held her close as they swayed gently to the music, mindful of her condition. Another month, he murmured against her hair. Ready to be parents? Ready as we'll ever be, she replied. Though Mom and your mother have bought enough baby supplies for triplets. They're making up for lost time, Gabriel observed. Remember how they barely spoke last year? Now their mothers were thick as thieves, united in their excitement about their granddaughter. They'd even started a joint business venture, channeling their organizational skills into a charity foundation. As the evening drew to a close, Isabella and William prepared to leave for their honeymoon. Charlotte hugged her sister tightly as much as her pregnant belly would allow. Be happy, she whispered. I am, Isabella replied. We both are. Different paths, same destination. Later that night, in their hotel suite overlooking the Thames, Charlotte and Gabriel sat planning their return to Boston. Their daughters' nursery was ready, the company was thriving, and their families had found a new kind of harmony. Isabella sent a photo. Charlotte showed Gabriel her phone. The newlyweds stood in front of Big Ben, spontaneous and joyful. She says William's already talking about having kids of their own. Our daughter could have a cousin close to her age, Gabriel mused. Growing up between Boston and London. No arranged playdates, Charlotte warned teasingly. No arrangements, at all, Gabriel agreed, pulling her close. Just love, trust, and truth. Their daughter kicked again, strong and insistent. Outside, London glittered under the spring stars, while back home in Boston, cherry blossoms would be blooming along the common. 2 cities, 2 families, countless possibilities. Next spring will be different again, Charlotte said softly. Our daughter will be here. Isabella and William might be expecting. The company will keep growing. And we'll face it all together, Gabriel finished. No more hiding, no more pretending. Charlotte thought of their journey, the secrets and pain that had led to unexpected joy, the broken pieces that had reformed into something stronger. Their daughter would be born into a family that had learned the hard way about honesty, courage, and the power of choosing love over expectations. The night was full of promise, like the spring air that carried the scent of new beginnings. In a few weeks, they would welcome their daughter. In a few months, they would celebrate their own wedding with everyone they loved. And every day in between and after would be a choice, to love, to trust, to build something real together. Some might call it a happy ending, but Charlotte knew better. It wasn't an ending at all, but a beginning, messy and beautiful and entirely their own. In a world where appearances and social expectations often dictate our choices, to what extent would you be able to sacrifice the perfection of your life for true love? Considering the consequences faced by Charlotte and Gabriel, would you have the same courage to choose honesty over appearances, even knowing that it could hurt people you love? Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.